Welcome. This is an introduction to Corbin's Embroidery Designer and some essential things you'll need to know about adding embroidery to your new Corbin saddle. But first, we gotta roll a title screen. Embroidery is something extra you can add to your custom seat. And let's face it, one of the fun parts about ordering a custom seat from Corbin is that you can make it as personal as you want, or as plain as you want. We don't judge. Before we get into the how, let's cover some basic info that you need to know first. First off, your new seat is going to have a Corbin logo embroidered on it somewhere. Typically, we will use the standard Corbin word mark and choose the most appropriate place for it. Or, if you prefer, you can select any version of the logo, its placement utilizing this tool. Otherwise, we'll just figure it out. Just remember, what you're doing here is not replacing our logo, it will be in addition to it. If you want custom embroidery where we usually put our logo, we will move the logo to a different position on your seat. Of course, there's no charge for the logo, regardless of what style you choose. Now, in regards to pricing, we tried to make this tool generate an estimate, but because of the wide variety of seat sizes and styles, plus the complexity of the process, we're not even going to try to put a number on this yet. Instead, just use this to let us know what you want, and we'll get back to you with a no-obligation estimate. I'm sure you're curious and want to at least get a ballpark figure, so here's an idea of the cost. Stock designs from the Corbin library cost roughly $25 to $80, depending on size, complexity, and stitch count. Custom text can run about $30 to $100, depending on how much and how elaborate, of course. Uploaded graphics work the same way. Complexity and size are what determines the cost. Some are pretty reasonable, but we've also done some pretty intense graphics that ended up adding $300 or more to the seat's price. There's no cost to find out, so feel free to experiment and submit your design for a free estimate. Once again, the thing about embroidery is that the size and stitch density affect the number of stitches and therefore affect the price. Design complexity and the number of colors also affect the time our designer has to be working on it, which also affects the price. Now, location, location, location. The dotted lines show you where we consider fair game. Some panels, like the seating area, are typically regarded as off-limits. The reason is that these areas are high traffic where it's not going to last or may discolor and fade quickly. Yes, we can make exceptions, but we're going to give you our best advice on what works and what doesn't. If you don't want to follow that advice and have a problem later, you'll be mad and think we're a bunch of and nobody wins in this scenario. To see the various locations you can use on your seat, just use the buttons in the upper right corner, like this. Alright, let's dive in. The first thing you'll want to do is pick a seat model that most resembles the seat you will be ordering. Use this button on the top left corner to select the type of saddle you are working with. We'll be adding more models as we go. Or maybe you want to add embroidery to the backrest and not the seat. This is where you change it. Right now, we have the most popular backrest models all in one configurator. Continuing through the top menu, use this to upload a graphic of your own. Keep in mind, uploaded items need to be very bold and graphic. Embroidery works well for logos and such, but isn't great for artwork with colors that blend or contain small details. We'll come back to that in just a moment. Adding and editing text is simple. Click the menu, then enter the text you'd like on your seat, and click the green Add Text button. Now, if you click on the text, you can move it around and make various edits right here. Click this button if you'd like to make a duplicate. This one to rotate. This one to resize it. Or this one to trash it. You can also nudge it around to the design area using the arrow keys on your keyboard. Inside the menu, you'll find lots more tools. We'll run through them real quick, and you can explore them further on your own. This one changes the text color, like this. Next to it is font size, where you can change the text size, the spacing between the lines of text, and the letter spacing. The next button is where you'll go if you want to edit it. You can also edit the text on the screen by double-clicking on the text like this. Notice how that changed into input mode. Click here to choose a different font entirely. These ones here you'll probably recognize as font attributes: bold, italic, and underline. Next to that is how you choose to justify your text left, center, or to the right. The next button will convert your text to all capital or all lowercase with a single click. Continue clicking to cycle through these options. This one will add an arc to your text line. First, you have to turn it on with this button here. Now you can adjust the sweep of the arc and the spacing of the letters using the sliders. Try this little button in the upper right corner to reverse the arc. I'm going to turn this off and just click on the back button when you're done. Transform will allow you to rotate. Position will align items relative to the page and lets you flip the text either horizontally or vertically. Move up and move down will position the text in the layer stack. This last button here will reset your changes. Let's say you want to make some multicolored text like a monogram. What you will do is actually create 3 text boxes using the duplicate feature. Then, just edit the content of this one for the letter. Then do the same thing with this one and change the color if you want. Close this out and now make it a little bigger for your traditional monogram. Adding one of Corbin's graphics is equally simple. The nice thing here is that there's no setup charge for these designs, as they have already been converted into an embroidery file. All you have to do is place it where you want it and adjust the size. Depending on the size of the mask, you may have to slide the graphic around a bit to find the corners and get it to the appropriate size. If you're near a center line, the picture will snap into place to make alignment easy. You will see the ruler appear when it does. Keep in mind, you probably don't want to make this kind of thing too big, you know? This is a motorcycle seat and not a sampler you're going to hang on a wall somewhere. That could be tens of thousands of needle holes you're poking into your new cover, you know? Conversely, if you make these too small, you won't be able to hold some of the detail. Remember, we're basically drawing with a needle and thread. We will contact you and consult on this before it gets made, so don't worry too much and have a little fun. Notice you have the same tools for duplicate, resize, rotate, and trash. Checking the dialog box, you can also change the color right here, but this is something that doesn't work for multicolor graphics. Here's what I mean. See what that does? It converts all of the artwork's colors, so if you want to make changes to a multicolored design, you'll just need to write us a note to let us know of all your color selections. Speaking of which, you'll find the Notes section below the configurator window. You may also note that sometimes we show just the graphic, while other times we have a photo of the design stitched out. It's a nice touch to look at it here, but the effect goes away once you change the color. Next, You can resize and rotate here. Flip and align here. Change a layer order and reset, just like you did with the text tools. Naturally, you can combine this graphic with the custom text you want. Just add in your text just like we did. Get it sized how you want and position it. Notice these will snap to the edges of other elements with rulers to help dial in alignment. Use the keyboard arrow keys to move it around in small increments. If you want to change how the objects stack, just use the Layer Up or Layer Down buttons inside the dialog box. Let's circle back to the uploaded graphics. I'm sure you've seen this kind of upload thing a million times, so just browse to the file you want and drag it into this box to upload. Once it appears, click on it to place the graphic. Once you've added your artwork, simply click on it and you will get controls just like we had with the text elements in the pop-up dialog box. On the corners are controls for size, rotation, duplication, and trash. Logos and such should really be vector-based artwork, like Adobe Illustrator, CorelDRAW, or an EPS file. We need to convert these into something our embroidery machine will understand. Sometimes the software does all the work, and it just takes a few minutes. Other times, it's a freaking disaster. Our designer has a pretty good feel for what's going to work. Once you submit your embroidery design, we'll be in touch to iron out the details and estimate the cost. For now, just figure out the placement and sizing. It probably goes without saying that when it comes to logos and such, we are bound by US copyright and trademark laws, so we can't be adding protected artwork to your seat. By law, we don't want to get Mike sued, or things get kind of ugly for those of us that were involved. What about photos and other bitmap type images, you may ask? If it's a bold and straightforward design, it may convert pretty much by itself as vector art does, providing you give us a file that is large enough, of course. Now, if you really want to try something crazy, we can have our designer try to convert a photograph into a piece of line art that can be stitched out. It's a bit risky, and I wouldn't say it works every time, but you can get some pretty interesting designs like this. Just a few more things. Along the left side is where you manage your designs. You can save your design for later use with this button right below it to load your design when you come back. Click here to print it out. This will actually load all views of the image into a new window so you can print it out using the browser's controls. Click the Download button to save an image to your computer. You can select the image format and whether to keep just one panel or all of them. Lastly, this Preview button will show all panels of the seat. Right-click and you can save the image you want. Click the X to close this window. Don't use the back button. Let's take a quick look at that last toolbar on the top. These buttons will allow you to undo and redo your last action, and the next one resets the configurator. This button will bring up the list of layers, which is handy for restacking as well as finding things that may have appeared outside a mask. Here's what I mean by that. Noticed how I placed a letter A in the design and closed the dialog, yet it doesn't seem to be here. If I look for the layers and select it, I can see that it is placed outside the mask, and all I need to do now is drag it into view. Yeah, this isn't exactly Skynet. Lastly, you can use the Zoom button to get a closer look. These guides align elements in your design. When you're all done mucking about, click the email button to share it with a friend. If you're ready to submit it, click Add to Cart, which will put 2 links into the shopping cart without any pricing. Please note, this does not add a seat to the shopping cart, just your embroidery design, so that we can provide an estimate. We're presuming you've already picked out your seat or are about to do so. You've got to add something for us to embroider it on. So, For the purpose of getting an estimate, you need to finish the checkout process in order to submit the design with us. Even if you haven't placed your seat order yet, you can still submit your design for a quote. Well, that pretty much covers everything. Have fun, and thanks for your interest in Corbin Saddles.